Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we have ApexCare on the show with us. We're going to be talking about the services that they provide. Stay tuned. Welcome to our show, Katie and April. I know you guys have a busy schedule, so I like to always thank the guests for being, taking the time out and being a guest on our show. Katie, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and why you got into the business of kind of helping the senior population for your particular position.
Okay. My name is Katie, and I am our Director of Client Relations at ApexCare. We provide in-home care services in the homes of our seniors. And the reason I got into this position is that I do have a background in gerontology, which stemmed from taking care of my grandmother when I was at a younger age and going through the college days of figuring out what I wanted to do. I started as a nursing degree that didn't work out, found Gero and rolled with it from day one, and spent some time at Adult Day Healthcare, and now I am here at ApexCare for the last about 7 years.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
And my name is April Kearney. I'm Community Relations Manager with ApexCare. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for having us. My background actually is I spent 10 years in nurse staffing for staffing nurses to hospitals for travel or per diem assignments. And I knew then I was doing something that was helping people, but I had an opportunity to segue into home care. And once I did, I knew that it was something that was even more personal because I got to meet the families and the people that we were helping to provide services for through caregiving. And I've been with the company since July of 2013.
Nice.
And in home care in general for 8 years. And I'm also a certified senior advisor.
Nice.
As well as I.
A lot of talent here as far as providing the services to the senior population, which is something we really need for this particular population. Let's talk a little bit about what type of service do Apex provide. I want to start off about the new mom and new baby care. Program, because you kind of was going into that a little bit, and the reason I want to start with that is because people don't know, like myself, I didn't know that you guys provide other services outside of the senior population to the community.
Yes. Well, in general, we can provide services for anybody that is 18 years or older. So we actually do have clients that are in their 50s and maybe they have some developmental delays, and we're helping them and providing companionship services to them. We also do the new mommy, new baby service. It's an interesting part of our area of services where if a mom is having some more major difficulties in taking care of all the situations that happen right after they've given birth, and having some difficulties with making sure that the baby is taken care of and everything is being done, and they maybe don't have the proper family support, we can step in and help. We'll step in, we'll help with the mom care or the baby care, whichever is needed, or a little bit of both. And it helps to just bridge that gap for that type of service.
So you guys pretty much cover mostly like the adult spectrum of care to the community.
Yes.
Which is really
correct.
really good and really needed. So what other services do you guys provide?
Do you want to go ahead?
Well, we also offer specialty programs that are unique to our service. We've created those programs out of a labor of love so that we can offer these to family members and help better support them, not just with the activities of daily living such as bathing, transferring, meal prep, and light housekeeping and errands, but also on an emotional psychological level as well. And we want to provide stimulation. So we have 4 different specialty programs, and we are looking to increase that and continue to grow those as we go along. Some of those include music and memory program, FitBand, Conscious Touch, and BeRemembered.com, which is a legacy program.
Nice. So what is the music memory program? Because I want people to, when they watch this, they can have an idea what those specialty programs is.
Absolutely. The Music and Memory Program actually was founded because a social worker named Dan Cohen, he had this idea that he wanted to bring personalized music to those that were in nursing or care homes that had. And so he took music, and he found that through sharing music through those with cognitive impairment, particularly personalized music that was important in their lives, like music that stimulated music from their past, had a tremendous impact. And so there's actually a documentary out called Alive Inside that I saw, and through that I was so excited, brought that to our company, and we knew then that we had to participate, even though it was customized for assisted living communities. We wanted to customize the program so that we could bring it to support people in their homes.
Nice. So have it been effective with you guys' clients so far?
As with anything, there's always trials and errors, ups and downs, and things that you learn along the way. We have had positive results, and we've also had a few that were not, frankly, candidates for the program. So we can go into that a little bit more if you'd like.
Well, I was just wondering, because I remember we was at a meeting, you and I, when the lady spoke about something very similar. I can't remember, but remember she gave a presentation, or were you at that meeting? She gave a presentation about her experience. She had a car accident, and she was pretty much not mobile for like almost a whole year. And some way, somehow, someone played music for her, music that she was used to listening to, and one thing led to another. And she said that it served as a form of healing for her.
Absolutely, and music touches everyone, not just those with cognitive impairment, and it's particularly important to those that are also dealing with other chronic conditions, being terminally ill, as well as dealing with depression specifically. It can help to lift your spirits and bring you up out of that. But we've had a positive experience with a lady, and she actually couldn't really remember anything, even that she liked music. And we didn't even know she was a musical person, and we had her for a couple of years worth of service before we even knew how much she was into music. And when we brought that to her, the home care aides would play the music with her and talk to her about it, and she started remembering back to her college days. And so it was pretty significant. And then there was other stories about her dancing with her sister and doing tap dance and doing performances at the neighbor's house because they couldn't afford to go to live performances. So it really has been amazing. There's other examples too that I could share if you'd like.
Okay, what about, we can move on. I think we kind of got, I just wanted you to elaborate on that part a little bit, because it's that particular part of any service, is, in my opinion, it's very unique, but it's needed. Because I think music I mean, like with all of us, if we hear a song that we like when we was 20 or 21 in our college days, obviously it's going to bring back memories from back then and there. So I mean, I think it's very effective. So that's why I asked you how effective it was with the particular population that you serve.
Yeah, one of the most effective ways that we've seen it work really also was with a client that was far along in his Alzheimer's disease process, bedbound, and as a person in general was very combative in having caregiving services. And when he was in bed and incontinent, sometimes he would try and hit our care providers when they were trying to change him. And so we found that if we played the music for him before they changed him, it calmed him down and made him more agreeable and letting our caregivers do the job they needed to do to take care of him.
So I would say it's pretty effective.
It's a very effective
especially in a situation like that. So what about the Fit Band program? I really like that one. I kind of did some little research on that one.
It's kind of interesting because this is where it just comes down to creativity at its best. There's a lot of things as an in-home care agency that we can't do because we're non-medical, but the things that we can do are have a lot of fun. And this kind of stemmed from that idea that a lot of our clients need exercise and they don't want to do it.
And the families are always asking us to get them to do a little exercise, and we have to find a fun way to make that happen.
So we had these fit bands in our office, and the idea developed, let's play music with it. Let's have our caregivers get actively involved with them and not frame it in the way of exercise. and we tried it on a few of our clients, and little by little they really started to get into it.
Nice.
And the FitBand, what is great about the FitBand program is it's not only just about the exercise, it's also just about putting a smile on our client's face. Even if we're just acting like a fool in front of them and they're laughing at us, we know we're doing our job because we're adding quality instead of just quantity to their life.
Yes, which is very important. What about, am I saying this right, BeRemembered.com?
You're saying it absolutely right.
Okay.
It's what's special about that is that anybody can go on to BeRemembered.com. You, me, your mom, anyone, and log on, create an account for free, and participate in the services that they provide. We met with a representative with Be Remembered, and we had this idea that really with older people who are isolated or at home and are kind of alone, we have this unique opportunity to sit there and be with them as the caregivers in the home with them. And we have the time that if we could get them to log on and get started with the process, kind of be the catalyst for it, that they would be able to preserve their life stories and share that with family members, as well as photos from the past and other things.
Yes. So for me, I think a program like that is very much needed, because even like with myself, I have so many questions about my great-grandmother or my grandmother or just different things like that. And, you know, sometimes my family is not always willing to share certain things, but you know, I want to know certain things. How was this person, and what did they do, and how was the attitude, and different things like that. And I think for this particular service, I think it is very appropriate for things like that. You know, just to kind of capture those moments when someone can actually go back, and even after the loved one is gone, it seems like they can kind of go back and get that information that they need. Am I?
That is correct. Yes.
And you can do other things as well.
Wow.
So a person can actually go on and compose a letter to their loved one. And let's say they're at the end of life and they want things that they want to say, but they don't want them known about until they've passed on. They can actually send a letter to their loved one that they've written after they've passed to share with them the feelings that they had inside.
Wow.
And it's connected to the funeral homes, from what I understand, so that once somebody, you know, has passed and the funeral home is starting to do their process, they can look into it to see if they have a Be Remembered account and pass that information off to the family. So there are families out there that have this information stored, and they may not even know it until the person has passed.
Wow. I've not heard of any agency providing the services, this particular services that you guys just described. So it's needed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and even before we started the Be Remembered program, we had clients that we did services in this respect. We had a client that was in the YOLO area that the family asked us. He has a ton of stories, but we don't have the time to sit down with Dad to ask him every single story. Can you sit down with him with a tape recorder and go through these stories? So as we're there, and we're there, 12 hours a day, we sat down with him when it was convenient to him, and he was feeling up to it, took down his stories, and now the family, he has passed on since we did this project, and so the families have all those memories now.
Yeah.
So,
do you guys think there is a disconnect from, just the younger generation or family members and like the elder population? Because I know back in the day, when the seniors got older, it was kind of like the natural thing to do was to let them live at home, families take care of them. I mean, it was just the way it was. But now there's a lot of loneliness and isolation with our population of the seniors. And I'm trying to why is that so? Like, what's going on where, the gap is being stretched between the generations?
I think we're just a lot busier now.
Okay.
Both mom and dad work now. That's not how it used to be. And kids are all going off to college. Everybody's involved in lots of sports and everything else. So I think our lives are just a lot busier now. And so grandma or grandpa may even move in with you, but they're not getting the same touch that they used to get in the homes. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think it's just the way our lives have changed over the years and over the generations.
Wow.
I think it also has to do with the fact that so many people are having children later in life, so that by the time that their kids are older and they're dealing with teenagers or going to college, they're also needing help for their parents at home.
Wow.
So it's what's called or referred to as the sandwich generation, where they're pulled in both directions.
Yes.
So that could be a contributing factor as well.
I know someone who, you know, her and her husband both has very lucrative careers. And, you know, she told me, she said, you know, and they have 3 kids between them. And she told me, she said, well, my husband and I, we have decided to set money aside for our retirement. We're not going to depend on our kids to take care of us when we get older, because who's to say that they will actually have time to do that? I thought that was very eye-opening to me. You know, and it was very realistic, because I mean, you can assume that this is going to happen, you know, when I get older, but in actuality, it may not go down that way.
Yeah.
If you know.
And you never know what's going to happen. And one of the things that we've always said in our industry is we plan for everything in our life. We plan for school, we plan for marriage, we plan for our lives of having kids and all that, but we don't necessarily plan to age. We plan to retire and all the fun stuff, but the aging part, not everybody's comfortable because there's of figuring that piece out, because there's a lot of unknown, and there's also a lot of, you know, fear of what your life is going to be at that time. And you also aren't going to know where your family is going to be at that time.
Exactly.
So.
That's exactly right.
And most people honestly call us at moments of crisis.
Very true.
When they need immediate assistance. And while we are definitely good at responding and helping people right away, and we do a very good job, we really want people to have the level of service that they need. So to start out small and increase hours from there, because as you know, one fall and then you could need around the clock care.
Exactly.
And also providing the respite to the family, because you know, when you do have a busy life, you have a job, you have kids, and then you're also providing care to a mom, dad, or an in-law, it takes up a lot of time and a lot of your me time. And so all of a sudden you have no time for yourself and you're giving all yourself away. What we can do is come in and provide the respite care so those people can go out and enjoy their life and do something for themselves, go see a movie, go for a walk, and not have to worry about mom or dad at home. We can take care of that piece.
And I think that's definitely important, because sometimes people feel guilty that they even having a thought of wanting to go out to a movie or go out to eat, instead of, you know, spending, you know, this time with the loved one that need the help. Some people actually feel guilty about that because they are so involved with their level of care and they don't know that it's okay to take a break.
And you have to.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned way back when was the same thing they talk about when you're on an airplane. You have to put your mask on before you help anybody else.
Yes.
And that's true in caregiving. You have to take care of yourself before you take care of anybody else, because that's the way that you're the best caregiver.
Yes.
A lot of caregivers also suffer from depression. It's not just among seniors because of those things that you said. They feel guilty. They're not getting the break that they need. And they find themselves drowning in all the day-to-day life things because they can't get away to even, not just even think about going to the movies or doing something for themselves, but even to run errands that are important for them to accomplish. So it's extremely important for them to seek out resources.
Yes.
And there's more resources than just you know, services for in-home care.
You know, I know someone that who works 2 jobs, and she come home and she cook, she clean, and she do all this other stuff, and she run the kids around, and you know, basketball practice, and she actually feels pretty guilty when she takes time to herself. I mean, she really feels like that's not an option for her. And I have to explain to her, look, if you don't take care of yourself, then how are you going to be able to continue to do the things that you're doing for your family? What they're doing, regardless if you're here or not, the show's still going to go on in their lives, but you have to pull back sometime and make sure you're okay, and then get back in there and do what you need to do. But I think that's very, very, very important for people to learn how to self-care.
Yeah. And you know, with self-care, I mean, one of the things I always try to think about is we're only on this earth for so long. We only have one life to live. Once the days are gone, they're gone. And once you're older, and you may not be able to do the things that you were hoping you could do when you were younger. Life doesn't wait. So, you know, when you're a caregiver, you still have to put yourself as an important piece of the puzzle.
Yes, exactly. How often do you encounter mental health issues within the healthcare field?
Pretty regularly. We have a lot of clients who, when we come to them, they are depressed, you know, whether it's diagnosed or undiagnosed at that point. If it's undiagnosed, we'll definitely get them in touch with their doctors and figure out exactly, you know, what's going on so that they can get help from them. And we, you know, we're there to provide services to help prevent isolation, which is a huge thing. A lot of our seniors are very isolated when we come to that, when we start caring for them, because the family is so busy, and we're jumping in to provide the care there, and you know, just being isolated.
So do you feel like the companionship is an important piece to the older adult population that you guys provide? How important is that to them?
It's very important. There's a lot of our clients who, in the beginning, they think companionship is the least of their worries.
Oh yeah.
The family wants the care for everything else. They just are putting up with it because their daughter or son said they have to have the service. But in the long run, I feel like companionship is really where we make the difference.
Yes.
It's absolutely huge. And I just want to say to all the family caregivers that are out there, if you're struggling and not getting a break and you're suffering from depression, or you need help or resources, you probably need to have some respite for yourself. And there are resources out in the community that are available for that. In addition to home care agencies like ourselves that are available to provide caregivers, there's also a resource center called Del Oro Caregiver Resources. And they help people with getting assistance for grants to provide in-home care for respite.
And sometimes too, because the stigma that's attached to depression or any other type of mental health diagnosis, sometimes people will not move forward and ask for the help. But you know, it's definitely needed. You know, you have to take care of yourself. I mean, it's essential in my opinion.
And I think a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, you're an older adult, you have all these things going on in your life, of course you're upset. But depression is bigger than that. It's not just, oh, well, you know, my spouse has passed away. It's that that lingering of sadness has continued on past a certain point, and you can't get back to where you were at one point, and you can't find that happiness that you had at one point in life.
So are there any warning signs that people could identify or should look for when it comes to depression in older adults? Like, what's some of the symptoms and warning signs?
You know, again, lingering sadness. They say about lingering sadness over 2 weeks. Of course, you know, if people are going through grief and things, there are other, you know, things you should be looking at. But in addition to that, you know, change in sleep patterns, changing in eating. It's a lot of the same stuff we see in the younger population. But our older population, especially our older population, they're from the pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and they're not used to going for mental health. I think the nice thing is with the younger generations right now, we are getting more comfortable with mental health being an issue. In the past, mental health has not been something that was recognized, and so older adults may not even understand that they have an issue. So it's the caregivers and the people, the resources around them that have to pay attention to those warning signs.
I think that one of the biggest signs that I see in home care is the sign of where they had an interest in something. Maybe they loved to golf, or they loved tennis, or they loved to watch TV or crochet or what have you. And then all of a sudden they did it for years and years, and then they just stopped doing it.
Oh man, you just hit on a huge one. I like to, I'm very, you know, I like to be personal when I do these shows. But you know, that kind of is what's going on with the someone I know. This particular guy, when I say love fishing, can go to Folsom Lake and fish all day with no problem, and all of a sudden it just stopped, just out of nowhere. And it was due to severe depression, and I could not get him to go back to Folsom Lake. I mean, it got to a point where we did go a few times, but not to fish, and just kind of walk around, because I was trying to see if I could, kind of get that spark back. But his depression was too, severe. And that is a really, really huge sign, like you said, when you find people that has a passion and an interest to do something, and all of a sudden they just stop doing it. It's like a red alert that goes up.
Yeah, we had a client, or she's still our client at this point, where in the beginning, when we first started services, she was so depressed because she no longer could drive any longer. So many pieces of her independence had been taken away that she just basically had given up. We've had her as our client for a couple years now, and through our services, before we provided services, she had stopped quilting completely.
Wow.
And now she quilts with our caregiver there, and it's a regular activity that they do that the family never thought that she would pick that back up. But now they do it on a regular basis, and it's just part of the care.
Wow. So how does that affect the client loved ones? When you see that your loved one loved or was passionate about doing something, all of a sudden they just stop. How does that affect, your loved one?
I think that family members oftentimes, they're so emotionally invested and involved, and when they see that, they become so concerned, and they want to try and get that person re-engaged and interested, but it becomes a point of frustration, because they try a couple of different techniques, and then those don't work, and then they become, frustrated because they're going, nothing is working here, what can I do? I think one of the benefits of the service that we provide is that our clients tend to respond completely different to our caregivers than they do to their own family members. And a lot of times we can be successful where family caregivers cannot, not because they don't love their loved one, but because it is their loved one and they feel like they're telling them what to do. Whereas we're doing it with them, and we're doing it together, and it really does make a difference.
Yes, and that's the same thing with companionship. I've from my experience with just knowing how this population work, the seniors tend to do better as far as companionship goes outside of their loved ones, because it's very personalized for them. It's kind of like you're there for me, and the stories are fresh, and I'm trying to get to know you, you're trying to get to know me, opposed to the family members, like, okay, it's you again, not in that sense, but it's like, okay, you heard my stories, and the interest is not as available, because it's like, oh, grandma, I heard that before, okay. But when you get somebody new, you guys are trying to get to know each other, and so you're able to share those fresh stories, and you have the audience that you've been looking for.
Yes, and when we create the plan of care, we customize it to that person specifically, down to the T, not just about the activities of daily living like bathing, dressing, and transferring, but what they like to do and what they like to talk about, the activities,
and what their past profession was.
Yes.
So that our caregivers have an ability to pull pieces of information out from them. They may have been somebody who like to go skydiving and horseback riding, and those things might not be able to happen at this point in life, but at least they can talk about it. They can tell their stories. And the generation that is old, like as you're getting older, one of the things that happens is you want to share those stories.
Exactly.
You want to leave your legacy.
Oh, yes.
And that's very important to that generation and that age group. So with that, our caregivers are able to sit there and provide the other side, give them somebody to tell those stories to, and pass that legacy down to.
Yeah, and that's true, I think, in all cases. As we tend to age, we tend to share our stories with, whether it's our kids, our niece, our nephews, a friend. Oh, I did this when I was your age. Well, even if you see them trying to do something slick, you can call them out on that.
Yeah.
You just don't know what I did when I was 17. I mean, so you want to share that information so that it can be, known in your family. And I think that is very important. like I said, for myself, I wish I knew more about like my grandmother or great grandmother, just because for me it's important. It's important to know where I came from.
And that's where the Be Remembered is really helpful, because I know even myself, there's a lot of stories that I was told at a younger age, but now that I'm a little older, I don't remember them.
Yes.
And with people who've passed, I don't get to hear those stories anymore. They're gone. So if the family members, and it's free to them, there's no additional cost. So when family members are our client, or anybody goes on Be Remembered, they're able to write all that information down. And so if your grandson doesn't want to hear it at 15, at 35, he's probably going to want to hear those stories.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's so funny because as people age, and it's just a natural process, people like to tell their stories over and over. And like you said, you go, oh, grandma, I've heard that 100 times. Well, when we talk to our care providers, we're letting them know, you're engaged, you're with them as if it's the first time that they're sharing that story with you. Yeah. And a lot of times there's a lot of subjects that they'll delve into because we want them to get to know each other personally, but we also have to maintain a professional level at all times. So there's certain subjects that are actually kind of off topic. Like we tell them no religion, no politics.
Yeah.
Well, they can talk religion, politics. Our caregivers are just not supposed to.
The clients can talk about it. We can't.
Yes. Exactly. So how often do you guys see, and we maybe touched on this earlier, but how often do you see caregiving burnout?
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah. There's some caregivers, some family members that are really able to handle it.
Okay.
But they usually have really good support systems.
Okay.
What we say is you can't do this alone. You need a team. Whenever we have people calling us for services, that's exactly what we're telling them is you need a team around you. And we're part of that team. We're there to fill in where you can't. And because you're at work, because whatever else is going on in your life, we're there to provide peace of mind. That's a huge piece of our service, so that people can go out and do their own thing, be themselves, not just be the caregiver.
Okay, I was just wondering about that piece.
I also want to say that from our side with our caregivers, we also see it among them. And so we have to be very careful when we're looking at staffing or engaging them with certain clients, because a lot of our caregivers work with multiple different clients.
Okay.
So we're always watching that for them too, and making sure that they know that they need a break as well.
That's good. And so you guys are in support of them if they say, hey guys, I need maybe like a few days off or just whatever.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's really good.
And we also, we deal with clients that they wind up in the hospital all the time, or they wind up on home health or hospice, or even passing away.
Yeah.
And hospice is very special in the sense that it takes a special caregiver to really be able to work those particular cases and be with the families, and they do get emotionally invested.
Yeah.
And so they do let us know if they need to take a break between clients and say, I just need to take a break for myself and come back. We're completely in total support of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How prevalent is Alzheimer's and dementia amongst the clients that you serve?
Not all of our clients, but we do have definitely.
I see. I was like, oh.
It's definitely a common piece of our services. Sometimes people come to us and they just have mild cognitive impairment, and they're just at the beginning roads of where they're at in their journey. And what's nice about us is we've seen it at every level. We've seen pretty much everything. We've dealt with, I wouldn't say every situation, but the vast majority of situations we've been through at least once. When the family, this is all new to them. So dealing with memory care situations, we're there to support those family members going through it, because it's not only hard for the client, it's hard for the family members going through it and watching their family members go through those situations.
Yeah. It's very important to get educated on Alzheimer's and dementia, especially for people who have seniors in their home, because when that happens, sometimes, once again, people don't understand. I'll give you an example. When I was working for an agency, and we was providing, very similar services that you guys are providing. some of the family members, they couldn't understand why. Well, you know, my mother is saying that she's going to the store at 5 o'clock, and she said it again, and 5 minutes later, but they're not understanding that this is their reality.
Yep.
And they didn't know how to cope with that, and they was trying to bring them back to their reality instead of being able to go into their reality and being able to really help them in the way that they need help. They really didn't understand that. Yeah. And so if you don't have that education about the disease, then you kind of going and fighting a losing battle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the Alzheimer's Association just recently put on a care conference here in Sacramento, actually at Citrus Heights Community Center, and we participated in that. And they had education for the families on how to communicate with their loved ones to have a positive outcome. Yeah. Oftentimes, family caregivers, they have a tendency to say no, when actually what we should be always saying is yes, and then redirecting.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have to live in their world, understand what they're saying, and then get creative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always say, pick your battles. There's a lot of times family members come to us and they say, Mom keeps doing this. Mom, she keeps saying the same thing, or telling us that she needs to go to work, and it's like, why? What's going to hurt if you say, sure, yeah, that's going to happen?
Exactly.
In a few hours we'll get ready for that. We'll go ahead and go into work, and she'll probably forget by that point.
Yeah, exactly.
And instead, families tend to say no, and then they end up fighting with them.
Exactly.
And then it's not good for either party.
Exactly, because it tends to escalate.
Yeah, exactly.
I know we had a situation where this particular client I think she was like in a skilled nursing facility or something like that, or getting out, and she would always talk about her red shoes. And so nobody knew what she was talking about. They would just kind of, no, you don't have any red shoes. And so one day her daughter came to visit from out of town, and so the staff was kind of talking to the daughter about the red shoes, and the daughter's like, oh yeah, she has a pair of red shoes that were favorite pair, and so it made sense to them. But of course they didn't understand, because as you know, sometimes they can remember certain things. Yes. They can remember certain things. They can remember, and I think sometimes they may not have like a long-term memory, but some of their short-term memory is intact. And so that's how we got to be able to understand and relate to them, so that we can help them in the best way that we can, so to speak.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's going on a journey every day, and sometimes people with cognitive impairment will sometimes also hold on to a particular item, like that's their security blanket, that's their go-to thing, and if that winds up missing, then it just completely throws them off. And so it's our goal to help our caregivers and coach them in ways that are helpful. If they've tried techniques that aren't working effectively well, they can always give us a call, and we help give them ideas of how they can succeed.
We answer our phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because in this type of business, you really can't.
Nice.
You really can't close down, because we always have clients, and caregivers working.
Nice.
And so even if it's on a Saturday and there's caregivers having an issue with a client, they can give us a call and say, hey, this is what I've gone through already, and these are the things I've tried. Do you have any other solutions? Is there anything else I can try? And we'll go through those different scenarios. And sometimes it's just, it's like when you're working in an office, it's sometimes just putting your minds together to find out a new solution.
Yes.
And usually we give those pieces of information, and then we don't hear from the caregiver, so obviously it worked.
Yes, yes. Like when you guys have new staff, the caregivers come on, do you guys like provide them with how to deal with clients that may be diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia?
First off, when we're hiring, we look for people who have that experience already. That's an important piece. And also that they understand the ethics of dementia, that it is okay to, at times, depending on the person's level of dementia, tell white lies, because, it might be keeping them safe. It might, you might be just going along with the story. Yeah. So that's important. We also do hands-on training with them at the office, and we have annual in-service training that they do every year.
Yeah. Yes, important, very important. And I think that's the struggle that some people have, that they feel like they're telling a lie to an all-timer client.
Yeah, I don't want to lie to my mom. I've never lied to my mom
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
You know, and it's when you grow up, you're told don't lie to your parents, don't lie to
Yeah.
your parents, and then all of a sudden you're an adult and they're older, and you
Yeah.
need to maybe lie to them.
Yeah.
You know.
But the way I look at, because every situation is different. You know, are you going to, because in other words, you're coming into their reality.
Exactly.
So in order to come into their reality, you have to be in agreement with them. Otherwise, you can't be able to effectively help them the way that you want to help them. You know, so I learned a lot from my position working for an organization very similar to you guys. I'm serious. I had no firsthand knowledge about Alzheimer's and dementia until we started, you know, getting those clients. I'm like, oh, okay, this is serious.
Yeah, it used to be, you know, back in the day, it used to be reality orientation, bring them back into our world. Now, one of the therapies that we pay attention to closely is habilitation therapy. Basically saying they're never going to rehab. They're never going to be the same person they were 5 years ago.
Exactly.
However, let's figure out what their best current reality is, the ways that they can handle things now. You know, one of the things that I always kind of think is neat is for colors. The eyesight of elderly people does change, and obviously it gets worse as they get older. And so, you know, you'll have a client, you'll put food in front of them, and it's a white table, there's a white plate, the food on it's kind of all white colored. They may not be able to see that, but if you put different colors there, they'll be able to see the different colors and notice that. But then you can also use that on the other side. Like if they're always are going into the bathroom and you can't get them to actually use the restroom, but because they always want to play with the tissue box. You can actually, if the background is white, you can put a white tissue box there, and they're probably going to just pass over it.
Exactly.
So using things like that to just help your ability to care for them and to redirect them, you know, through their day.
And there's definitely different phases that people go through when they're going through this disease process. So at first, you know, it could be very super difficult because there's a lot of masking going on.
A lot of denial.
Where, you know, they're putting on their best face, even though they may know something's wrong, but coming across like there's nothing that's wrong there. And then, you know, obviously getting angry and being upset about it and feeling like they're losing control. And then there's other stages as well, like wandering.
Exactly.
And with wandering, you know, I think that obviously the goal is to keep the person safe, and so you don't want to do that, but it brings to mind that we did have a caregiver that we provided additional training to. She was very good with those that were in the beginning stages, but once it got to be with the wandering, she needed a little bit more coaching. And so we brought her into our office because what she wanted to do was she wanted to keep that particular client in the house because she wanted to keep that client safe. And that was actually exacerbating the situation because all our client wanted to do was to get out,
to go on a walk.
And she was very active before and went to other stores and frequented places. So it was like, no, we don't want her to wander, but we found that by taking her on regular routine visits on outings, that decreased her wanting to wander in the first place.
Oh my goodness. You know, I had I worked for an agency that had a very similar client, but this particular client was artistic. And he loved to walk. And when I say likes to walk, he would go on like 2 hours walks. And so none of the staff wanted to take him out because they're like, look, we don't want to walk for 2 hours. And so
it's a long time.
And so this particular, because I was a manager at this organization, so he got transferred to my caseload. And so I had a little bit of experience with that. And so I had to, this was actually in the Bay Area too. I had to go down there and actually I was down maybe like 4 days just to do some intense training with the staff to let them know, look, first of all, you need to get some tennis shoes when you come to work, because he was having major behaviors like busting holes in the wall. It was, you know, pretty intense. And so after I did a little bit of training with them, I actually went out with them as well, you know, to just kind of show them and different things. His behavior decreased significantly, you know, but he wanted to get out the house. And I'm like, if you got 2 staff, one of y'all go for an hour, one of y'all go for another hour, but you can't keep this guy in this house because he's gonna tear it up and then target you guys as well.
It doesn't make it better.
Exactly.
And it's good to get out.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because when we do assessments and we find out what our clients want to do, we service a lot of clients that are in the Davis area. And in that area, people like to do biking.
Yes.
And bike everywhere. And even a lot of our seniors do. So I remember one time I came back from an assessment, I said, you need to find a caregiver that likes to bike because that's what they're going to be doing.
Exactly. It's about meeting the client needs.
Yeah, doing whatever they enjoy to make them happy at home.
Exactly. It's funny. So, elder abuse. That is definitely on the rise in the senior community. I want to talk a little bit about that because, I think it's important, number one. And I think that people need to know how to identify, when seniors are being taken advantage of, so to speak. Have you guys had to deal with a population or a situation like that at all in your career serving the senior population?
Yes, we've actually dealt with, luckily not a ton of different situations, but a few. And whenever the biggest thing is whenever we have a doubt, any idea that there's a possibility going on, we at least call Adult Protective Services to say, hey, we're not 100% sure of what's going on. Maybe we just did the assessment. We don't know the full situation, but we want to have somebody else go look at it with professional eyes that deals with elder abuse on a regular basis. So we're mandated reporters, and so we'll, no matter what, even if we have an inkling that something is off. For instance, one of the things is actually the day we were hiring April, or we did April's second interview.
Nice.
Way back in the day. I went out to an assessment right before that interview, and at the assessment, the wife was pretty much, she had a stroke. She wasn't able to talk. She wasn't able to communicate properly. The husband seemed like he was the nicest guy. Everything was pretty clear, and he seemed very normal, and he was going on vacation and wanted us to provide some services. And the whole time I was there, I just had an odd feeling. And meeting with the wife, I unfortunately, she was yelling and screaming, but at the same time, that sometimes happens, Sometimes we'll be at an assessment and somebody with dementia they're not able to express themselves correctly.
Yeah.
So I didn't know fully what was going on. I had only met the family for a couple hours. And so in that, I came back to the office and I noticed some other odd things around the house and stuff. So when I came back to the office, I just said, hey, I have to put April on hold for right now. And called APS. They actually found out that she was basically being neglected.
Wow.
And so they did remove her from the home. And it's one of those things where it was literally an hour of my time being in the home, but that's something that I feel like we're really good at, is assessing a situation.
That's good.
Whether or not it's, a situation like that or any situation, people, my loved ones always tell me that I'm assessing them all the time just because that's part of, what I do. I think being in this industry, when you go into a home, you kind of look at everything going on and you notice everything. You notice the handrails, you notice the stairs, but we also notice things like, hey, this person's not maybe in the best situation. And a lot of people are afraid of protective services, whether it's child protective services or adult protective services, because you hear a lot of bad things. But honestly, what I have found is that if nothing's wrong, they're not gonna harass you. They're not gonna bother you. They're just gonna come out, ask questions, make sure everything's okay, make sure the person that may be in danger is not in danger, and then they'll move along. They're not gonna cause problems unless there is an issue there.
Yeah, the financial abuse is definitely topping the charts on committing abuse against the senior population. A lot of times the seniors, they're really dependent on their caregivers to help them with their finances, because a lot of times they can't get online and pay their bills, or they don't have transportation to get to banks and grocery stores. So they're dependent on sometimes for the caregivers to go and do the right thing. But unfortunately, it doesn't always happen like that. And I always think about my mom with that particular situation because, I worry about her getting older and not, I mean, she's pretty sharp. She's, a very sharp woman, and I'm grateful for that. But that part of it, I always think to myself, like, okay, I'm down here in California, my mom is in Chicago, and what if something like that starts to happen to her? So I'm always trying to talk to her on the phone, talk to her about senior scams, everything that I know about how to protect a senior. I'm always trying to talk to my mother about. She slipped up not too long ago and got a phone call from somebody that scammed her. And she gave all her information over the phone, and I'm like, okay, Ma, you can cancel that card, and I'm like, well, I can do it for you. I can call it. No, I got it, because they want to still feel independent. But my personality is to get in there and take care of that, so nothing will happen with her money. But it's important, that people are aware of what's going on with their loved ones when they have caregivers. And I'm not saying that every caregiver is bad, but you do have those that's out there. When the opportunity arises, they're going to take advantage of it.
Yes, and I think that's just a human thing. I mean, I think a lot of times the people that are going to take advantage, they know their targets. They know an easy target when they see them, and unfortunately that's going to happen. Yeah. I actually just read an article where even like on your medical bills, you need to pay attention, because there's some doctor's offices and that are double billing, Medicare and Medi-Cal and all those things, and it's like, because then they can get more money because people don't look at their medical bills.
Exactly.
And so they just bill whatever and try to get the money for it, and that's financial abuse right there.
Exactly.
Even though it's not anybody that's a loved one doing it.
And then, go ahead.
I myself got called with the IRS scam.
Wow.
I received a phone call, and it scared me. So I can't even imagine, being, a senior and receiving that phone call. It threatened. It was specific. It said, like, 4 counts against you, and you will be arrested within 24 hours.
What?
If you don't do something about it. So, what I would like to tell families is a good tip is to be sure to make sure that you know that, one, for the IRS scam, that the IRS is not going to call you first off.
Exactly.
So that's it's a scam. But also with other scams that are involved, come up with a family code word, or be sure to have conversations like what you had with your family member. Is that tell someone when you get those calls, before you act, just run it past somebody else in the family.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, we've run out of time, and I told you time was going to go fast. And thank you guys so much for being on our show. And that's it today for this edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this particular show, or would like a DVD copy of the show, or if you would like to be a guest on our show, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.